back. You're still watching Business Morning on Channels Television, and today the focus of our program, of our conversation, is on meeting World Bank target of reducing extreme poverty by 2020 and how Nigeria can actually tap into all of this development and move forward. And I have here with me in the studio, the human capital development expert, Mike Adile. Thank you so much, Mike, for sticking around.
Thank you.
Now, the World Bank, to end extreme poverty, plans to work with the leaders of developing countries, and just like what the president of the World Bank Group said, Jim Yong Kim, especially in areas of providing finance to accelerate growth, attract private investment, and create jobs. Now, we've begun to see that already in some key sectors, but we should remember that it's not just Nigeria that they're trying to also help in terms of giving financial aid and the rest of it. But is the help that they're giving, is it enough?
Averagely, I think it is enough. But what are we doing to be able to take advantage of what they're giving to us? Now, if we don't look into one of the major issues that we have in this country, which is corruption, then no matter what anyone... Look back in the last 10, 20 years and go calculate how many aids and grants has been given to us in all sectors, education, agriculture, development, health, from foreign bodies. What have we done with it? What has that translated into to date? That doesn't... We're not even talking about our own budget for all those sectors. Now, what has that translate into development in this country today? It doesn't make sense. Corruption in this country. Now, I think about a year ago, when the governor of the central bank actually blew the whistle and said 70% of our budget goes towards paying bills and 30% is for capital expenditure. Now, how can a country that wants to grow, if you are a foreign body or a foreign donor that gives someone some money to actually help them out or lift them up, and they spend 70% of their money in paying bills and just 30% for capital expenditure, what are they going to do with 30%? Even that 30%, more than half of it is being siphoned and stolen through corruption. Now, you can look at the pension scam that where it became a national scandal the last time. Somebody stole billions, okay? And they just give a slap on the wrist and say, pay this amount of money and just walk away. Now, we've had series of other people that the EFCC will come into the public and say, we are arresting this, we are arresting that, and what the government will tell us, or what the news goes around is, they will confiscate all the money, all ill-gotten wealth of these people. Now, who monitors all this taking back ill-gotten wealth from these people that is actually go back into the government treasury, or is being translated and given back to the people to build the nation? Nobody does that. So how are we sure all this thing goes back? So corruption is one major thing that we need to look into. If we don't look into it, no matter what comes into the country, it wouldn't translate into any positive measure. So
what can the different tiers of government do to lend their own support to ensure that poverty is reduced, apart from the issue of corruption, which we know is a very major issue?
Cancerous, yeah.
So
we should also be looking into how government should focus mainly into micro businesses in the country, which I mentioned earlier, because there should be the foundation or the fundamental mechanism to actually build every country. Now, if they're not being focused on, then we're not moving anywhere. Now, we spoke about having access to credit facilities, okay? We spoke about how to mentor and grow them to become a thriving business in the country. They have to have a policy to go into and begin to focus on micro businesses in the country. You have majority of them, okay? If they're not being looked into and try to hold by the hands, right, this is the way to go. Go into the market, go into the public places. You see some businesses that's been going on for about 5, 10 years, but not growing, staying in the same place because they don't know how to. And there's no support from the government. Now, also, let's look into their power system in the country.
Yes, infrastructure development. What kind of role will it play?
If we have, now, again, thanks to the government, they've actually privatized the PACN. Now, how many, if I'm correct, is it about 4,000 to 5,000 PSN that going into retirement, they're going to pay off Is it 45,000 or 50,000?
About 50,000.
About 50,000. Now, they realize huge amount of money, trillions of naira, from the sale of PHCN. Now, what the news that is coming out to us now is they're going to use all that money to pay off all these people. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. And I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense. Now, for a very focused environment, what should happen is you have trillions of naira that you've sort of that you actually realize from the selling of the PSCN. What you should do is set up a body to look into the whole affair. Now, you have to begin to, because majority of these, we have seen them several demonstrating and chanting that, this and that. Majority of these people are still employable. Now, if you put 45 or 50,000 back into the unemployment figure, that is going to rise again. Why do you want to pay them? I'm forgetting about them. No. Pay them a percentage of that money. You want to pay them. And the rest of them, retrain these people. Majority, about 70%, by my calculation, about 70% of these people are still employable.
But that's what the federal government intends to do. In fact, most of the companies who actually bought the unbundled companies actually plan to retrain such ones, because you see, manpower, especially for people who have been in this business for a very long time, they know the issues and they know the challenges, and are the best people to actually hit the ground running when business is supposed to start. And so from all indications, most of these people are not going back into, or they're not going to become just another number in the unemployment numbers that we're counting at the moment.
They could be, if there's no policy to actually guide them. They could be, because once you pay them the entitlement, they're graduating and everything, they just relax back. Some of them will want to go into business, but who is guiding them on the business to go into? So it's a policy. They have to make sure you don't give them all that money. Give them part of the money and use the rest of the money to retrain them, to make them employable back into the system, so that they don't add to the figures we already have at the moment.
Okay, let's go back to that. You know, you already said it, Joe. You mentioned it, some of the programs that we had. At one time we had, I think the recent one was, one of the agencies was NAPEP. It was actually put together to tackle poverty.
Sure.
Now, we know that as much as possible, it has to do with implementing. Now, what role can legislators play in this, especially ensuring that poverty alleviation programs are properly implemented?
Human capital development. Now, when we're talking about a PEP, which is meant to be targeting grassroots poverty alleviation, I've been around several places whereby you will just see a caricature borehole system being planted in one community, and you will see the picture of the person there saying poverty alleviation. What has borehole, which is meant to be the government function to provide potable water to the community? You now put that up in a structure somewhere and say poverty alleviation. I've seen also whereby a government, local government, the state government will gather some set of people, giving them physical cash, 10,000, and say poverty alleviation. How would that translate into alleviating poverty? Why don't you have, many years ago, we used to have what we call cooperative, thrifts and whatever it's called.
No, we still have them.
Well, functional. Well, it's not functional. If it's functional, it's being controlled by some set of people. It is meant to be controlled by the community, whereby you have varieties of foods and clothing and everything in there at a subsidized prices, whereby people can go and actually buy cheaper than what they can buy in the market. That is poverty alleviation. Don't just give people handouts and say you're doing poverty alleviation. 10,000 you give them today will go through nothing. The NAPEP, we used to have what they call the keke NAPEP or whatever. I mean, they're saying they want to use that to
reduce poverty as well.
Poverty. Now, that's why I keep saying every policy needs to be monitored. If there's no body monitoring any policy, it's bound to fail. Now, you have all those people coming in to get the money, the fund, to buy the bikes and everything. After a while, majority of them become a nuisance to the society. And after the nuisance of the cost of society, the government now said, okay, we're going to ban all of you. Don't ply this road, don't ply that road. So now, are you helping them, or are you bringing them back to where they came out from? Because there's no policy that actually guides this NAPEP policy to ensure that the purpose is being set up for is actually being implemented.
So what are the solutions we should be looking at now going forward?
Well, first and foremost, I think the government or the National Assembly should begin to look into how to legislate a law that would separate the EFCC, the ICPC, from being controlled by the executives. You see, that is the fundamental, the base of corruption. The EFCC are there, the ICPC are there to tackle corrupt people, to tackle corruption, but they get influenced by the people that put them there. If I'm the president of this country, and I happen to appoint the head of the EFCC, now I can't be sanctioned. If any of my cronies, my friends, my family gets into trouble, of course I'm going to influence what the EFCC can do. So let there be a legislation to actually separate, make them a public entity, not the government entity, being appointed, being directed, but with a legislation saying the three arms of government have no power to influence the activities. That's number one. Number two, government policies on SMEs. Okay? Now, I mentioned this earlier on. We need to have, for example, look at why do we have microfinance banks in the country? Their fundamental purpose is for them because to get very close to the grassroots, so that if you cannot sell the commercial bank, you go to the microfinance bank. But these days, you cannot go to the microfinance bank. Even what they charge you is even more than what the commercial bank charges you. Now, there is no policy implemented to actually guide and make sure the purpose of this microfinance bank are being what it's been set up for. But there's no policy. So we need to look, the government needs to look into that as well. Now, if we're going to be talking about diversification of the economy as well, now good, great, we're going into agriculture. I love that. It's a fantastic idea. I mean, kudos again to the Minister of Agriculture, who's actually rolling up his sleeve to actually put everything to make sure it works. And that's why the whole country is talking about agriculture now. But that shouldn't be the only place we have to stop. What happens to our tourism? Our tourism will bring in a huge employment opportunity for us if we begin to look into that. We're not doing much into that. Entertainment industry. The government, the last time I had pumped in, I think about 200 million or billion into that sector. Now, you can't just throw it. It's a good gesture, but you can't just throw in money without a policy, a framework, telling them what to do with the money. Now, the money goes in there, who knows what happens with that money. But we need to have a system in place. The Ministry of Culture, or what's it called?
Tourism and Culture.
Tourism and Culture should focus on that area as well. That is another avenue that the government should be looking into to actually make sure that if it's been implemented, the policies that have been implemented, and they grow that environment, of course, it will bring in a lot of opportunity for us as well. Efficient tax system. We should look into our tax system as well. Okay, not the way we have in the double taxing here and the federal revenue, the state revenue, but they're trying to do what they call a joint tax board now, which I think if that is being focused on and implemented properly, then it might begin to generate more funds for us, especially in the services sector. So then, ultimately, let's look into the power sector. That is what will drive the whole economy. Because without that, no matter what you do, look at what we used to have in the days of the Volkswagen of Nigeria. We used to have the Dunlop, Marty Dunlop that produced in the country. Do you know how many unemployment when they left the country because of an epileptic power structure failure? That the number and the percentage of unemployment that's brought back into the country, we'd have to look into that, but gracefully. Let's see what happens with the privatization of the PACN. Hopefully, if it works the way it should be, then we should begin to see more credit.
Well, thank you so much, Mike, for joining us on the program today. It's been quite informative. I hope we'll have you here again.
Thank you very much.
Well, I've been speaking with the human capital development expert, Mike Adele, and we've been looking at issues surrounding poverty reduction. Of course, the World Bank has a target of reducing extreme poverty by 2020 to about 9%. And, of course, they're trying to work with leaders of developing countries and their partners, especially Nigeria, in providing finance to accelerate growth, attract private investment, and of course, create good jobs. It's a process that has started, and they're very passionate about it. But let's see how it goes over the next couple of years. But that's the show for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Harriet Agbenyi.